This car didn't just fail a safety test, it completely collapsed. And what happened next was so shocking that it changed how people looked at car safety forever. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. This was a normal car, from a trusted brand, something thousands of people drove every single day. And yet, in just seconds, everything went wrong. And this is just the beginning. Because some of the cars you're about to see didn't just fail, they completely broke down in ways no one expected. Let's start with something that looks completely harmless. A small, simple car. Nothing aggressive, nothing unusual. The kind of car you'd never think twice about driving. But during testing, that confidence disappeared instantly. As the vehicle moved toward the barrier, everything looked normal, stable, controlled, exactly how it should be. And then, impact. Within a fraction of a second, the front structure failed to absorb the energy properly. Instead of protecting the cabin, it folded inward. The dashboard shifted, the steering column pushed back, and the space designed to keep the driver safe started to disappear. This is what experts call loss of survival space. And once that space is gone, everything becomes more dangerous. Because now, the car isn't protecting you anymore. It's collapsing around you. But here's the part that makes this even worse. This wasn't a high-speed crash. This was a controlled test. To simulate a real accident, which means this could happen in everyday situations. And once this data became public, people started noticing patterns. Similar failures, similar weaknesses. And suddenly, this wasn't just one bad result. It was a bigger problem. But here's something most people don't realize. Not all failures happen instantly. Some build up quietly, hidden inside the structure, until the exact moment of impact. In some tests, cars actually looked strong at first. The initial hit seemed controlled. The structure held for a split second, and then suddenly, everything gave way. This kind of delayed failure is even more dangerous, because it creates a false sense of security. For a moment, you think everything is fine, and then, it's not. Engineers study this very carefully, because a good car doesn't just survive the first hit, it controls what happens after, step by step. But when that control is missing, the result becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is one of the biggest dangers in any crash. Now imagine something even worse. A side impact. You're sitting inside your car, and suddenly, another vehicle hits you from the side. There's almost no distance, no time to react. That's why side protection matters so much. But in this case, it wasn't enough. During testing, the barrier moved straight into the door, and instead of stopping, the structure failed. Collapsed inward. The side panel bent under pressure. And within milliseconds, the impact reached the passenger space. Faster than expected, harder than expected, and far more dangerous than it should have been. Because side crashes are brutal. There's no long crumple zone, no extra space. Everything happens instantly. And if the car isn't strong enough, there's almost nothing left to protect you. That's exactly what happened here. And it shocked engineers. Because there was no gradual damage, no controlled energy absorption, just sudden, aggressive intrusion. But even that wasn't the worst case. Because the next situation is something most drivers never think about. A rollover. When a car flips, everything depends on one thing, the roof. If the roof stays strong, there's still space, still protection, still a chance. But if it fails, everything changes. During testing, this car was rolled under controlled conditions. At first, everything looked fine, but then the weight shifted, and the roof began to collapse. Slowly, then suddenly. The pillars bent, the structure weakened, and the space inside the cabin started shrinking. This is where things become critical. Because once that space is reduced, there's nowhere for the force to go. It transfers directly to the people inside. And that's why roof strength matters so much. It simply wasn't enough. At this point, a pattern becomes clear. These weren't random failures. They were design weaknesses. Problems that only showed up under pressure. And that's exactly why crash testing exists, to expose these flaws before they happen in real life. But here's something even more important. Cars weren't always tested this way. Standards were lower, rules were less strict, and manufacturers had more freedom. Which means many older cars simply weren't built for these situations. And when they were tested later, the results were shocking. Structures collapsing, cabins deforming, protection failing. Not because engineers didn't care, but because the standards weren't there yet. And that's when everything changed. Because once these failures became public, the industry had to respond. New safety rules were introduced, stronger materials were used, designs improved, and over time, cars became much safer. Modern vehicles are built differently. They don't just resist impact, they manage it. They absorb energy, redirect force, and protect the space inside the cabin. But the cars you've seen today tell an important story. Safety is not automatic. It evolves. And sometimes it takes failure to force that change. And here's something most people still don't realize. Not all cars are equally safe. Two cars can look almost identical, but perform completely differently in a crash. One might protect you. The other might not. And that difference can change everything. That's why testing matters. Not to scare people, but to reveal the truth. To show what really happens when things go wrong. Because you don't choose when an accident happens, but you do choose what you're driving when it does. So now the question is simple. Would you trust a car that failed like this? Or would you think twice before getting behind the wheel? Because sometimes what you don't see is exactly what puts you at risk.